Hello, everyone, and welcome to an August edition of Inspired a Galaxy. Today we are talking about a lovely film called Agora that came out in 2009, and I thought it was beautifully shot and poignant, a great period film that I didn't see now, not until now, due to current events. And I was like, hey, Brian, do you want to cover this on Inspired a Galaxy? And
hmm
neither of us had seen it, so we watched it twice, I believe, and now we're gonna cover it and share it with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we finally got a chance to watch this film. Like you said, we each got a couple of views in on it, and yeah, the content of it is important. It's an interesting story, and yeah, it felt like a really good time to come on to Inspire the Galaxy and have a little chat about it.
Yeah, and I didn't really see this until now because it just timing didn't work out when it first came out, but it's always been at the back of my mind that I wanted to see it. And then kind of with the news of things going on with the American Supreme Court, it just kind of made me
hmm
kind of look at the world and the country. uh, Lots of our rights, uh, just differently. Like, they're not set in stone. Like, you have to keep actively voting for them, protesting for them. And it just really got me thinking. And Agora is about Hypatia of Alexandria, who kind of deals with some similar and adjacent situations. How would you describe this film to someone who hasn't seen it before to get them to watch it?
Um, yeah, so like you said, I hadn't watched this until now. I actually had never even really heard of this film until you brought it up to me a little while ago. And I was looking here, and when its box office release here in the U.S. back in 2009, it only ever played on like 17 movie theaters. So I don't know if it was
Wow.
just put in for, to potentially get it into any sort of Oscar conversation. But that's very strange. I mean, it was directed by Alejandro Amenabar. I'm definitely saying that incorrect, and so please correct me if I am. But so it was released in Spain. He's a Spanish and Chilean heritage, so that's pretty much where it released. But that's really odd because it stars Rachel Weisz, who is very popular here
Mm-hmm.
at the time, and a bunch of other really good actors. So it's strange that it didn't have some sort of a more wide release. But yeah, this completely flew under my radar until you brought it up to me. And yeah, the timing of it is really good. So as you mentioned, it kind of revolves around the story of Hypatia and kind of the falling of the Library of Alexandria as kind of the Roman pagans Jewish society that was there and the incoming Christianity were all kind of coming to a head and seeing how that was going to play out in different areas of the Roman Empire. Christianity got its start over in Constantinople and Turkey during the Roman Empire, but as it kind of spread throughout the empire, you had kind of these heads come into a clash. And yeah, I mean, it has some echoes. Hypatia is a great kind of figurehead for women's rights movement. She was a scientist, a mathematician, and all these things, and basically got silenced as Christianity kind of came in and took over at this time period. So yeah, it felt pretty poignant, and I think it's a good movie to watch for that. And it's also a good one to watch if you're a big fan of period pieces because, we'll see a lot of movies kind of set during the Roman Empire time, but it almost always focuses like on Rome or, maybe like, what the English were up to at that time. But we don't ever see much of the Roman Empire outside of like the walls of Rome. So it's interesting to see that play out in a different setting, I guess.
Yeah, it's great to have a film set in Alexandria besides Alexander, which
Yeah.
came out, I think, in 2004. And what you were saying, like, this film came out in 2009. That's like 1 year. That's the year that Obama was inaugurated. This is pre Tea Party times.
hmm
This is pre Trump times, and pre whatever the hell is happening times. But
Right. Yeah.
uh, it just seems to call a lot. And that kind of reminds me is just like, as much as I hate it, sometimes like history and humanity, we seem to be cyclical, and I don't think it means we're doomed to like always repeat the same things, but like we always kind of deal with the same problems. We have some of the same successes, and it just kind
Mm-hmm.
of gets me to like look at the history of everything and examine it more. And as you say, it's a different type of period film. It's focusing on different things rather than the rise of Christianity or a rise of a certain figure in Roman
Mm-hmm.
history, or England. Like, I mean, England, in in the Roman Empire times is cool. Like, I love the parts that are in England and Pompeii, and all of Pompeii.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is just different, and it's kind of more like a philosophical, psychological film, I think, and it really helps me think a lot more about science, think a lot more about religion, belief, what can be a cult, human rights, and I mean, if you make a list, I can be like, it made me think about it, But
Mm-hmm.
let me pull up the IMDb for Agora, because you mentioned it has Rachel Weisz, who plays Hypatia of Alexandria,
Mm-hmm.
and you said it was directed by Alejandro Amenabar. Uh, and then it also stars Max Minghella as the slave Davis, and then the Oscar Isaac, as Orestes.
Yeah, and I thought that it was really well acted. I thought Oscar Isaac was excellent, and this is one of his kind of earlier roles. Obviously, of course, we know him now from Star Wars and a Moon Knight and a bunch of other stuff that he's got going on as he's kind of come into the limelight. But I really liked his character and the job that he did. I also really liked Michael Lonsdale, who is a really good kind of classically trained actor, British, playing Theon, who is Hypatia's father, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
in the film. And I thought that he was great. And yeah, it sets up a really good tale, kind of this scientific enlightenment versus religious idealism, and just kind of played off of that. And then your character interactions, kind of change as we go through the stories, as Orestes is in love with Hypatia and Davis is in love with Hypatia, and how like that kind of balance and the diametry of that, I guess, changes as these different idealisms come into play.
Almost like they're rotating in an ellipses.
Almost. That's right.
Yeah, and some other good supporting actors were Ashraf Barham, who plays Ammonius, Rupert Evans, who plays Synesius, and Sami Samir, who plays Cyril. And if I probably not if, but I actually probably mispronounce those. If anyone has any corrections, please let me know so I can correct that. But it's a stellar cast. Some stellar performances in this. Like, maybe my one complaint could be like the pacing of the film. Sometimes it felt like it was going to end a
Mm-hmm.
certain number of times, but then it didn't. I guess like if they could have found a way to pace it, uh, maybe a bit of a better way, I think this film would maybe have been perfect in my eyes and maybe would have garnered more interest. Like, because I kind
Mm-hmm.
of think this is like maybe like Passion of the Christ for like philosophy or like uh, atheism. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely kind of plays on those tones and makes you sort of step back and analyze them, and look at kind of what you hold in your own kind of esteem. And yeah, I would definitely agree with you on kind of the pacing, because there's a couple of times throughout the film where it feels like it's kind of wrapping the story up, or it's kind of told everything that it had intended to tell, and then it kind of, it just carries on kind of to the next thing. It's almost, I guess, maybe like a stage play in that sense, where it kind of is winding down and wrapping up like the first act, or something like that. So maybe some parallels to that there. But yeah, I thought that the pacing could have stood to be a little bit better, and definitely would have played through better. But I like that then you got kind of the different, almost like sections of the film where at first you have the pagans, and they're in this library, and then you have the second section about the Christians kind of coming in and setting up the kind of their their way and their rules and laws for Alexandria, and then kind of the third act where it's completely fallen and into what they're trying to accomplish there. So yeah, I think that, yeah, I just thought it was a really interesting story to tell, and really well done. And I'd mentioned kind of in the lead up here that it's an interesting time and an interesting kind of aspect to get it, because obviously you have Hypatia's story, it's set against the backdrop of the Library of Alexandria, which didn't actually happen at the same time. I think most historians and scholars believe Hypatia was born around the time that the library fell completely. So, playing with the timeline a little bit there, but I think that does a good job to kind of, kind of tell this story really where you're, like I said, you're really kind of analyzing science versus religion.
Yeah, and it feels like it's the end of an era, and like I think it makes sense for her to experience that as like a fully realized adult character. And
Mm-hmm.
even though like I'm pretty sure like Julius Caesar burned the Library of Alexandria, I have to think that there were some remnants of the library that like people would kind of preserve, and then like probably with the change from pagan to like Christianity, probably like the pagan thoughts were suppressed or
Mm-hmm.
destroyed. So in my mind, like I in my mind I do allow myself to like enjoy the story and then kind of think about like the actual historical reality. But I think for the most
Mm-hmm.
part, you can say it's a good historical dramatization, but like it's always good to just be aware and like not take everything for uh, the canon gospel truth.
Right.
Like, yeah,
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And really a good kind of period piece like this should do that. I mean, obviously you want it to be um as realistic and as truthful as it can be most of the time, but obviously there's going to have to be embellishments, and there's going to have to be kind of in any film you're telling a story that you're writing and coming up with. So there's going to be a little bit of leeway you have to take, but then hopefully that kind of spurs you then to go and learn more about Hypatia, learn more about the library at Alexandria, learn more about Christianity coming into this area and how it spread throughout the Roman Empire, and basically put a kibosh on all other religions that were around then at the time, and then ultimately led into like the Crusades as Islam came in that part of the world. So yeah, it's really interesting. And like you said, Cassie, you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, but then hopefully that propels you on to want to to be entertained by the media, Agora, the film here in this case, but then to go learn more about the things that actually happen there, and kind of educate yourself beyond what the film can offer.
yeah, and some things that I truly loved about the film were the aerial shots.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually I think those are reserved for like alien films or sci-fi films or sci-fi fantasy films like Star Wars, but
Mm-hmm.
I think in this movie it makes sense because Hypatia of Alexandria and her students are really just exploring like what the rotation of the Earth is, that the Earth is round, and like kind of what it looks like, and it's no one can see the whole picture, but it's self-evident,
Mm-hmm.
and So I really love those aerial shots, and I love the character of Hypatia of Alexandria. She's just a smart, present woman who knows what she wants, even if she knows it's not what other people wants, and she stands up for herself. The acting was strong. It's unique, bold, and courageous, and I loved the elliptical relationships because like there were different points in the film that I was like, I I think that Hypatia is like closer to Davis here, and like kind of doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really give the time of day to Orestes. Uh, and then kind of with time, you kind of see Orestes mature and he kind of understands, won't push. I think Orestes would like a relationship to happen. And who knows, like maybe Hypatia wasn't interested, like maybe she was asexual, maybe she was a lesbian, or just she was busy, loved her science, didn't really have time for a relationship, didn't want it. Like, who knows? But
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, like, at the beginning of the film, I was like, yeah, I think Davis loves her more. And then, like, the film transpired, and I was like, he doesn't. And then
Yeah.
I was like, I think Orestes gets her. Maybe he doesn't get the girl, but he gets her, like, understanding.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. It's a really good kind of paradigm between those three and the way that that works. And yeah, like it's played as an ellipses, which is kind of the mathematics that she's looking at throughout the movie. So some good parallels there. You mentioned kind of the way that it looks. This it looks great. For a film that wasn't that widely distributed, I thought that the sets and the location were really well done. It looks like it was filmed, in at least a pretty large part in Malta, which is a beautiful place and very sort of uh, ancient looking in parts of that. One of the cool things you mentioned the aerials, and there are some really cool aerial shots. I'll talk about one here in a second, but kind of as you're setting up kind of the different sections of the book, you almost had like it looked like if you used to go back on like Google Maps and you could do like a Google like zoom in on different like locations of the world. It almost looked like that going in, which was really cool because then you got kind of an idea, and you don't know how much of this was kind of made up, or how much of this was taken from historical records and maps and things. But the way Alexandria would have looked, I thought that was really cool. And you mentioned kind of the overhead shots, and you get a lot of them because I think Agora, it basically is referencing like the big like town square area kind of out in front of the library, right? Like the center of enlightenment here in Alexandria. But there's a lot in particular, right, as the library is falling, as the Christians have come in and are starting to take over, you get kind of this overhead shot of them kind of going through the streets, and it was really like striking to me visually because it kind of pulls up, and the people are very very small then, and they almost look like ants, and it seemed like they might have sped up the film a little bit, so it looked like kind of just like these little like marching like little like soldier ants were going like throughout the city and spreading around like you'd see in like an ant farm or something like that. And I thought that was really cool and really striking visually, and just kind of hit the tone of what this fast kind of spread of Christianity would have been like in these big cities as they kind of started to get a foothold and taking over.
And I think you see the spectrum where some people are devout believers, but kind of more normal, and then some people uh, become stricter, more orthodox for whether it's for their own gain or for political reasons. And then you see some people where it's like they convert for political reasons, or they leave paganism, or uh, all of that. Like it, so it's interesting. You kind of see like the whole spectrum of like what religion can do. It can be beautiful, but it can also be ugly, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and that's one of the big kind of takeaways from this film, and it's not necessarily meant to say that your beliefs are wrong or right. It's more of kind of taking a step back and looking at the way you think about things, and it's less about your own sort of religion and ideal than it is about being able to see the viewpoints of others.
Yeah, being able to question being able to live in peace, treating people equally. It mostly just says like everything is a spectrum, you know.
Right.
It can be healthy, it can be unhealthy. Religion, philosophy, everything. So that's what I kind of liked. It was a good lesson. Um, was there anything else that you would put under the loves slash pros
Um,
pile?
I don't know that I would put it as a love slash pro, but I did really like it. It had kind of this really neat sort of visuals at the end of the film. This spoiler warning, but this happened, thousands of years ago. So I guess I take that. But as they're coming in to stone Hypatia at the end, and Davos kind of kills her to basically show her mercy, so she's not stoned. Kind of the last image she sees is the ellipses in the top of whatever building they're in there. So it's kind of like her last image before she's martyred in the name of science is basically the shape that she's been studying throughout the film. And I thought that was cool from like a visual storytelling aspect there.
Yeah, in a way, it's like she's seeing the love of her life as she dies, and that was powerful. Um, I guess, like, for me, the cons, perhaps maybe the title could have been stronger. Because Agora just means public square. I can understand why they used it. It kind of sounds Latin-y and kind of like can transcend cultures, but I think, like, I don't know, maybe ellipsis or I don't know, Hypatia of Alexandria. I don't know. Like maybe something could have been better, but maybe I don't know, like what I would choose would not work well either. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it looks like here that it was in a couple of countries it was listed as Alexandria as opposed to Agora,
Huh.
which might have made a little bit more sense. Maybe I'm not 100% sure, but there was an alternate title called The Mists of Time, as an English alternate title. I don't like that any better than Agora. I don't
That's
think
not good.
that helps
The
either.
Mists
But
of Time. You
yeah.
can
So
have
maybe
any title and they're like the Mists of Time. That's what we're saying.
I think maybe instead of Agora, I would have maybe like to have had it called Hypatia, because at least then that might have spurned more conversation about her the character and the real life figure. So maybe that would have been a better name, because yeah, like you said, Agora, it's pretty generic term, and even if the library at Alexandria, the space in front of that, even if that was the most famous square of all time, I wouldn't have put those together. So
Yeah. And for me, the pacing, but maybe it was based off of a play or could be a play in the future, like anything's possible. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, just some of the pacing, like in the middle, like I can understand why there's a little bit of part one, part two, but it felt a little disjointed. Um, what were there any cons that I didn't mention that you thought
Mhm.
of?
Um, no, I thought other than the pacing, I thought that kind of the characters were all pretty well written, and the acting was great, and I really liked the kind of the on location stuff. So yeah, really for me it was mostly just a matter of the pacing, and I think um yeah, it felt very kind of abrupt the way it was telling the story, and maybe I'm just not used to that sort of storytelling. But I thought that it could have flowed a little bit more organically, probably.
Yeah. And the reason that this film matters to me, why I wanted to see it, is just we've just been seeing a rise in Christian nationalism, in hate crimes, general disunity,
Hmm.
tumultuous times, and just like some rights being taken away, and which makes a lot of people think like, could marriage equality be next? Could this be next? Where do I go from here?
Hmm.
So I guess it matters to me because it reminds me that Hypatia of Alexandria stood up for what she believed in, even at the cost of her life. And there are good people out there, and nothing has to happen. You know, it's not inevitable that bad things have to happen. The tide can be turned. We can vote. We can raise awareness. Uh, what would you say we can do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely do that stuff. We can, try to seek out and support stories that are like this that will help kind of, hopefully change your paradigm or at least give you different perspectives on things. And especially in a story like this that really, kind of plays, the importance of science and understanding our world and, at what, kind of opposing forces it's met with there. And, someone as strong and courageous as Hypatia, learning, from her example, trying to be educated and to teach and to learn, despite the things that are, happening in the world, unfortunately still today, like you mentioned, we've had a very rough month, here in the U.S. at least as far as, equality for everyone. We woke up one day and half of the population wasn't as equal as the other half, and that's not great. And there are a couple of good sources I wanted to point out to people. Obviously you can take a look at your own local Planned Parenthood centers, because they can always use the help with resources. But there's one here. It was started by some Star Wars fans. It was Rachel L. and Meg Dowell started this, but it's called What Choice, and it's a GoFundMe. And that was basically just to basically raise money for abortion freedom and access. It's kind of like a general fund sort of thing that they use to, to basically help women that need medical assistance and maybe can't afford it, or maybe now are having to travel to do those sorts of things. So wanted to mention that. And we also wanted to mention our friend Nerf Herder Co. Has just started a campaign as well. She's got a candle. It's called I Support Reproductive Rights, and it's her kind of candle line and the wax melt line, and she's donating the proceeds to that, I believe, to the Utah Planned Parenthood centers there. So, you can do that. That's a great way to do it. Get yourself a candle and help make a little bit of a difference there too.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing those resources to mind. We'll have them linked in our description and in the episode. And if you see that we missed any other resources we can list, we'll add them. And thank you for listening. And I think this is a good film to watch. I believe you can see it on Amazon Video as well as Freevee, and it's a good one and very topical. Anything else from you?
No, yeah, you should definitely watch it. Like you said, I watched it on Amazon. I think it streams through Freevee, so there are a couple of commercials on there. But yeah, you can watch it absolutely free. And yeah, the story is important, and you should definitely watch it for that. But just to kind of see this period piece and some good acting and stuff. So it's a good movie, and it's a good message, I think. So yeah, definitely check it out.
And may the ellipses be with you. Also, it literally is a period film. So, yeah.
It literally is.